Helping your parents sell their home is probably the largest financial transaction of their lives, and you can't afford to make a mistake, especially when those are the funds they're probably going to use for their care and retirement. So this is a huge burden, especially if your loved one is having health issues or is incapacitated. So today we're going to talk about the 5 mistakes I see when adult children are helping their parents sell their home. So the first mistake is failing to involve your parent and not considering their emotions. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to call your loved one mom. So failing to consider the emotional impact this is having on mom is a recipe for disaster. The reality is that selling a home that holds sentimental value can be emotionally challenging for everyone. So be empathetic, acknowledge the grief, and provide emotional support. Remember, mom might be feeling helpless and angry about the situation. So if mom is capable, involve her in the decision-making process. Her input can be really valuable, and it can ensure that she is comfortable with the process. The chances are you will need her to sign paperwork at some point. So by keeping her in the loop, you reduce the stress and you can keep her from being overwhelmed. And this is going to make things a lot easier on you in the long run. Now we have legal considerations. Let's talk about whether you have the legal authority to act on behalf of mom. And what does legal authority to sell mom's house look like? And what is the real estate agent going to need? So this can vary from state to state. In advance, I'm not offering legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, but as a real estate agent of many years, this issue comes up frequently enough. First, what many people need to know is that being a guardian or a conservator is not going to give you the automatic authority to sell the property. So having guardianship of someone gives you the authority to deal with their personal affairs. So where they live, what kind of medical care they require. Conservatorships deal with financial affairs, giving them an allowance, paying their rent, and you can have both over someone, of course. But what's important for this discussion is that generally a guardian or conservator will need to use the court to grant permission to do something out of the ordinary, like selling a home. So generally what I see is that mom has had a health scare. She's in the hospital or a medical facility, and she will no longer be able to live independently. Everything happens very quickly. The family has to find acceptable housing for mom, and they're going to look to sell the house because it's expensive to maintain and the funds will probably be needed for further care. So the first thing the real estate agent is going to do is they're going to pull the tax records. And if the person who is at the listing call is not the person on the tax record, they're going to see if there's other paperwork that's been drawn up to determine that they can sell the house. If not, they're going to have to, at least in our state, get a power of attorney, which is a document that's going to allow, a trusted person to act on behalf of mom. And generally, we use a very limited POA. In my state, we use title companies, and they will help facilitate getting the appropriate documentation. And if the people who are selling the house are not on the tax records, and they do have other paperwork, they'll confirm that that's all legit, and they'll work all that. So title companies are very helpful. They have a stable of lawyers to work through all this. But the fact is, this is one of the reasons it's a really great idea to do estate planning in advance if possible, because many of these decisions can be determined in advance and documents put in place if mom should become incapacitated. What's important to know is that POAs do not extend after death. So if mom is very ill and passes away during the process, then the legal framework shifts again to what paperwork is left addressing the estate. And this is another reason why doing estate planning in advance can be enormously helpful for any family. This is important regardless of wealth, because many people worry they don't have enough assets to worry about. But the fact is, there are many issues surrounding one's person and possessions that should be addressed. So having the appropriate paperwork and people in place, it's going to ensure that mom wants and needs are met. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Besides, it can be very lengthy and expensive to receive permission later to sell if all the paperwork isn't in place. So, it's very important before mom becomes incapacitated that there are advanced directives put in place. So the best advice for any family would obviously be to do some estate planning with mom early before the unexpected occurs. Because generally what I'm seeing is that there is no one else, there's not a spouse or whatnot acting on mom's behalf. She's by herself, and that's why the children are helping. Now, if this burden sounds like more than you want to deal with alone, and you would like to find a highly skilled real estate professional in your area, check out the links in the comments below. And we can set up a time to talk with you one-on-one to determine what your needs are in your area. Now, another problem is that many people want to rush the process. Everybody's timeline will be different, but ideally this is going to take some time of planning, especially if your mom has been in her home for a long time. So if you're suddenly facing the need to help your parents move due to health, and the need for money might be a real concern, selling the home can be a significant piece of that puzzle to make the situation better. But the fact is, it really can't be rushed. You really have to take the time to plan, prepare, and make an informed decision. And this is easy to say from my point of view, because you're probably in an unexpected situation. Even if you were somewhat expecting it, sometimes it's just a trip or a fall or an accident that changes everything very quickly, and decisions now have to be made. So a little advanced planning obviously can save some frustration on this end. So at this point, I'm going to tell you, just like I did in the last portion about talking to a lawyer or even an estate planner, you really at this point, if you're going to be selling, need to talk to a real estate agent, talk to a professional before you decide to sell, particularly if you're deciding to sell by yourself. This is what we would call a FSBO, or a for sale by owner. There are things you should consider, because there are other perils. You might want to make sure you have an appraisal and perhaps talk to the title company ahead of time, because selling by yourself has its own risks, and it may seem like an easy thing to do, but people often try to sell a property by themselves only to find out later that they need the complete picture of the home's value and the authority to sell it. And this is what I mean by that. Very often when people do title work, they're very surprised. And this could be the case because this is mom's house. Elderly people sometimes have non-traditional loans, like a reverse mortgage. Their family doesn't know, or perhaps they did it a long time ago, or perhaps their home is paid off and they haven't been paying the taxes, or they have liens from different services they've had done in the home. So there could be a lot of things that are on that paperwork. So do not assume you know everything about mom's financial situation. These are not good surprises, and they can and do impact closing. So developing a clear plan for the sale, including a timeline, marketing strategy, a plan for what to do with the proceeds. It's a little bit of work, but it can save you a lot of time and frustration if you put the time in up front to plan. So the fourth thing to remember would be financial considerations. Some people need to consider financial and tax implications. It may seem like it will all work itself out. It is essential to know these things in advance to avoid costly mistakes. So I would say consult with a tax professional or with your financial planner or an estate planner, depending on where you are in the process. If you already have people in place, they can be of help and answer these things. But if you don't, it might be a good idea to find an estate planner who does elder care work, and they can kind of tell you what the implications of the sale would be and where you ought to put the money and how you ought to take the money at the closing. There could be things like capital gains, estate taxes, also could affect your eligibility your loved one has to receive government benefits. So this should all be done before you actually close on that property. And here's something I want to add about this, why this is important. It's helpful to know if you're worried about the long-term care of mom. If she's declining and you're concerned about her future needs, you want to really speak with that elder care planner, that person who understands what goes on here, because you can actually avoid the nursing home from gobbling up all of your mom's assets. The catch is that Medicaid has a 5-year look-back period for assets, and with advanced planning, you can reduce the financial stress of long-term care for your loved ones. So if you were thinking that that might be needed or that's a concern, I would do that in advance, because many people are very shocked by how expensive assisted living care can be, especially if you're going to seek special things like memory care, which is even more expensive. And it can drain the financial reserves of a person very quickly. It would be ideal if everyone could plan their estate in advance. And many people are reluctant because it's unpleasant, or they think they don't have enough assets to worry about. And the fact is, a good estate planner who specializes in elder estate planning, they are going to surprise you with what they can do to protect what you do have, and they can help you address concern about your loved one being in long-term care, because it should be a huge concern about how long mom's money will last. Probably find some of these resources too in your local area. And sometimes workplaces have various programs that you can, take part of that can help you lead you in the right direction if you do not have people in place already. So the final thing is not expecting home selling and moving costs. Selling a home is expensive, and there are a lot of costs involved. Some of those things are going to be obvious, like real estate agent commissions, closing costs, legal fees, potential repairs and inspections. And sometimes you're going to have the move-in fees if mom is going to be moving to a senior community. And those things seem to be somewhat obvious. However, on top of those more obvious expenses, there are things that are less noticeable, such as going through the home and disposing of items that you're not going to use anymore or that mom's not taking with her. This is really time consuming, and it can be very costly, especially if you need to pay someone to do it for you. So it's important to consider such things as moving expenses, Also, the possibility that mom's going to need some new furniture in her new place. The fact is, she's probably moving to a smaller place and she's going to need different things. So all these things can really add up and they can take a lot of time. So don't let them catch you unaware. Plan for them. And if necessary, enlist the help of family and friends so you can mitigate some of the expenses. I'm connected with thousands of agents across the country. And if you want to be connected with an agent in your area to help you or a loved one, just click in the link pinned in the comments below, and we can set up a time to talk one-on-one. I would love to hear from you in the comments below on struggles you are currently facing when selling a home. What do you think would make the process easier? Have I missed something? And if you would like to know more about other senior housing topics, check out our other videos and playlists. My name is Melissa Halter. Thanks for watching.